you've got a project.
We have. We've joined again with Hewlett-Packard, as we did last year, to have a bit of a competition for rural schools to enter, and with the hope of getting a share of $20,000 worth of new technology for their school.
About 20,000 reasons why they should.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many schools out there who really want to do more than they currently can, and they just hampered because they haven't got the technology or the skills, or there's something holding them back. So this is a great project, and Hewlett-Packard have funded that, and we're helping them along with it. And so we're encouraging all schools, you know, to get out there and put an application in and show us, you know, why you need it. What are the problems that you have in your school about, you know, computer technology? What would you do if you could? You know, if all things were equal and you had everything you need, what could you do? What benefit would it be to the school, to the children, and possibly even to the wider community?
So who are you aiming it at? Who is it who fills in the form?
These are for primary schools, small rural schools of probably under 300 students, and in really rural locations who are struggling along with technology and need a bit of a helping hand. And it doesn't need to be just about, you know, do I need a new computer or anything like that. It can be things like software, it can be connectivity, because we know a lot of schools out there, although the government had this great scheme and got fibre optic to the schools, it only got it to the school gate. And a lot of schools haven't been able to bring it inside the gate yet. So, you know, that's an area that Hewlett-Packard can help with in this project, as well as actually just getting them connected and schooling them up and showing them what potentially is available to them.
Because it'll be a minefield for some people.
Well, it is, and I think some schools struggle because they don't always have the IT skills within their staff, because they haven't had the equipment, so they haven't had the need to use it. So it's kind of a little catch-22.
I was actually just thinking, Kerry, there's probably students who know more than some of the teachers.
Oh, and some of their parents, absolutely. And I think it's really important for our children, because increasingly, you know, they're working in a more technological age, and we've got to prepare them for the world they're working in. I recently heard a great presentation about the advance of technology, and you know, you get floored by statistics like, you know, if Facebook were a country, it would be the third largest country in the world. And if you're studying a degree and you're in your third year, what you learned in your first year is now out of date. So the pace of change in technology is increasingly getting quicker and quicker. So our children really need to be on board with this, and it's really important that our rural children aren't disadvantaged because they haven't got technology and they've got problems getting connectivity and onto the internet. So this is why this project's so important for rural children.
You as a mother would know full well that children don't have an option of having a computer or not now.
No, they don't, and increasingly schools are making the computer or a device of some form actually compulsory. You know, there are schools that are moving to full digitalised learning, and I know my own children at the high school they're at, their aim is that by 2017 every student will have their own device. And what that means, obviously, is that there's an impact on the family for having to provide all those devices. But also when they come home to do their homework, you need that kind of technology at home as well. You need internet, you need wireless at home. So it's becoming more and more important for rural families as well to have the rural broadband and connectivity and be able to support the children with their learning.
There'd be quite a bit of noise if you had 3 children who had to share one computer at home.
Well, it wouldn't work, really. Let's be honest. It wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. No. So they do have their own, and you know, it does put a load back on parents as the children grow, and that, you know, every couple of years you've got to upgrade the equipment, because you can't just hand down a computer to someone else because it's out of date. So yeah, it's an impact on children and their families. So, and also, you know, if the school's using different software, for example, the school might be Apple, Mac, and at home you're Windows. So, you know, there's all those sorts of compatibility things, and kids are using software that mum and dad have never seen before. So, you know, this is where this kind of project's really helpful, because it's providing the technology, but it's also potentially helping the community as well.
So this is where you get, Mum, come on, get with it.
Oh yeah, get with the program. Yeah, I get that all the time. And it's you know, you do need the wireless at home, because you can't have, you know, 3 or 4 kids all queuing up for their spot on the computer, and suddenly it's 10 o'clock at night and someone's still doing their homework. So yeah, it does put an impact on the home. But it's kind of becoming essential because of the rate of change and the way technology is developing in the world, and we've got to prepare our children for that world. And increasingly, even the rural sector and agriculture, where these rural people are living, it's becoming more and more technology based. So our children really need these sorts of skills. So this kind of project that's helping those schools provide that is so important.
Because when I was at school, we weren't allowed biros or calculators.
I know, and you had to wait till you got to high school before you were allowed to use a ballpoint pen. Yeah, I know, all those things.
We didn't have them at high school either. So anyway, I'm a little bit older than you. 13-year-olds and under and general practitioners.
Yes, the 1st of July, the government now has provided funding for under 13-year-old children to have free GP visits. It's a little bit tenuous because they say they're eligible for it. Doesn't mean they'll necessarily get it, because what has to happen is the GP practice has to sign up to the scheme. Otherwise, they don't receive the subsidy to be able to provide the free visit. And Health Minister Jonathan Coleman was very forward the other day in suggesting that, well, if your GP doesn't provide that, then you go shopping for another one. And I thought, well, how incredibly naive. Because
especially in the country.
In the country, you just simply don't have a choice of GP practices. You might have one in your town, and for many rural people, you're travelling 50 k's or more to get to the one you've got. And if they're not providing it, then what do you do?
So the media to
just say that it's eligible and people can have it, you've actually got to make sure that people can have it, and you've got to do more than just make it available. You actually have to then provide it and not just say, well, it's there if people want it. It kind of doesn't work that way.
Because what did he say? If you break a bone, you just got to go around until you find one who will pay for it. But I mean, surely the general practitioners themselves are going to say, well, we've got rocks in our head if we don't.
I think a lot of them have. I mean, there's still one or two, I think about 10 GP practices that haven't signed up to the under 6 free subsidy, and I think a lot of it comes down to whether they can actually afford it, because sometimes a practice will say that, look, it actually costs us more to provide this service than the subsidy is providing, so we can't give it free. So therefore they make the call on whether they will or won't sign up for it based on whether it's actually going to cover their costs. And a lot of GPs say that the subsidy being offered won't cover their costs fully, but they, I guess they subsidise it from within their practice in some other way. The key really is making sure that children can get medical care, because we know that there are families who don't take their children to the doctor because they can't afford it.
Yeah, that's tragic, isn't it?
It is tragic, and children are, they're not getting the care they need, and by the time they do get to care, they're usually in a hospitalised situation, and it's a much bigger problem than if they've been able to actually afford a GP visit to start with.
So what's Rural Women New Zealand doing?
Well, we're wanting to encourage the government to actually provide it to all GPs, irrespective of them having to sign up for the scheme. Realistically, if you're saying that it's available, you actually need to provide it instead of just saying, well, you come and get it if you want it. I think that's a bit tough, and particularly for rural sector where there isn't a choice of GP. You can't just go to the next one down the road because there isn't one. And if you're in a town where there's more than one practice, often those practices are so overworked, their registers are so full, you can't change GPs.
And I guess the other thing is that a lot of the GPs will say this is just extra work. I've got to fill out forms.
It's another bit of administration and so on.
I've got to wait for the money to come back.
Yeah, there's all of that. So we really just want the government to acknowledge that for rural sector, it's not as easy as shopping around for another GP, that they have to come up with a much better solution.
And I'm sure you're not going to stop. You're going to keep rattling those doors.
Absolutely, we will be.
Kerry, thank you very much. So 2 big things. We've got the GPs under 13 and under,
yep.
And you've also got the school computers with Hewlett-Packard.
Hewlett-Packard, and all the information and application forms are on our website, so people can easily get those.
Brilliant, thank you very much indeed.